Hey guys, what's up? My name is Erica Dietrich, or Erica the Dev Online, and I have been a content creator of sorts for about a year and a half now, pursuing it full-time. Well, can you say it's full-time? Just semi-full-time for the past 6 months, and I've learned a few things along the way. And so because so many people think that they want to pursue content creation, or even just might need to as part of a larger business strategy or personal branding strategy, I thought it could be fun to do a video where I go over the good, the bad, and the ugly of being a content creator. Now, keep in mind that across platforms, I have 12, 13,000 followers / subscribers. So obviously I am not a huge enough creator to experience some of the infamous things you might have heard from your favorite creators online. However, I'm a large enough content creator that I've gotten paid to do sponsored posts, that I've gotten invited to creator events, and that I am generally seen in my community of tech as a creator. So with no further ado, let's get to it. So let's start with the good, shall we? Because there has been a lot of good that's come out of content creation, even though you hear a lot of negative things, and I'm also going to share some negative things. But the first good thing about content creation that I want to point out is just the level of visibility that you get, no matter what it is you're sharing or what it is you're trying to do. So again, I'm in technology, and so from the moment that I started posting both my thoughts and my technical knowledge out there, which I mostly started on LinkedIn initially, I started there most heavily and had the most success, believe it or not. And even with just a few thousand followers, I started being on people's radars and on people's minds. Now, again, that might not seem like a big deal, but in a highly remote and isolated world, and in a workforce where, I was a Cisco employee, so I was one of 80,000 employees globally. People don't really know who you are for the most part. I mean, unless you've been at the company a really long time and blah, blah, blah. And literally just, here I am, new employee. I've been in my role as a developer advocate for 3 months. And suddenly all kinds of people at Cisco and other important networking circles, network engineering circles, were saying my name and talking about my videos and just wanting to incorporate some of the ideas and knowledge I had into other things that people were doing. So what is the point of that visibility, right? This is kind of a multi-part good thing, but the point of that visibility is that people thought of me for opportunities. So I started having people knock on my door, metaphorically, to ask me to help with really cool projects. They thought of me for any awesome projects they were working on, which again is a big deal because in your job or in tech, sometimes it can be a struggle to be put on important work, or maybe there's a cutting edge new technology or product that you want to be a part of, and you're having trouble getting your foot in the door, and so they would just come to me, or if I came to them, they knew immediately who I was. They're like, oh yeah, Erica. And that's visibility within my company, but there was also visibility outside of my company. And the visibility outside of my company, again, you aren't always cognizant of what that visibility looks like or the impact you're having as a creator. Sometimes it feels like you're posting into the void. But ultimately, what ended up happening with that external visibility is same thing. I got invited to really cool opportunities. I got invited onto podcasts that otherwise I might not have gotten invited onto. I was given multiple paid opportunities. People who were asking me to create sponsored posts or to give them feedback on a developer project. I even had an offer to run an influencer strategy program. And of course, visibility and connections are important beyond just getting paid, but I think that these examples of getting paid are pretty concrete thing to share with you guys as a reason why you might want to be visible. The other good is, on top of being visible, again, I have greatly expanded my network within tech. Again, I joined the tech sector in 2019, just before COVID happened. And when everything went remote, I just didn't meet people or didn't hardly network. And I would try to do it remotely, but it's just not the same. And I often felt just how big this gap was and what a disadvantage it was compared to people who had been in the field just a few years prior to me and who had worked in an office and had made these deep relationships with, both peers and potential mentors, sponsors, etc. So some of these connections have become friends. Some of these connections, again, want to pay me to do things for them. Some of them are vouching for and supporting my work. So they become a fan of me, and anything I put forth now any of my courses, my videos, they're there to be the first ones clapping and making sure it's a success. And not all of my connections actually share and post content themselves, but some of them do. And I've learned a lot from them too. As you'll see as a recurring theme in this video, it's a little bit difficult sometimes to quantify the good things that have happened to me as a content creator, but I'll try my best again to give you specific examples and stories. At the time the first year that I started content creation, again, I was working as a developer advocate. And one of the things I did was I traveled to these conferences called Cisco Live around the world 3 times a year. So one in Europe, or one in Asia or Asia Pacific, and then one in like North America, US. And every conference that I'd show up to, starting with the first one, when I'd only been posting for a few months and only had a few thousand followers, I had people who I had never met before and had never seen their name, people who hadn't even liked and commented on my stuff, were like, Erica, who wanted to talk to me, get to know me, wanted to know about my work, wanted to introduce themselves. And again, you can kind of be like, well, so what? What does that mean? Again, it's hard to quantify, but there is a lot of value in people knowing who you are and caring about what you do. I mean, how many of us have worked hard or have things we felt like we could offer the world and we just don't feel seen? So that was a very surreal and kind of odd experience. I honestly didn't handle it very well the first time it happened. I had like a stranger danger moment. Like, who are you? It never occurred to me that people would want a picture with me or to talk to me with just a few thousand followers. But I think that as a consumer, and you know this because all of us are consumers in some form, as a consumer, we kind of build these feelings and relationships towards people that we watch online all the time. And obviously that's a whole nother rabbit hole to go down in a different video. But yeah, and it resulted in, as an example, a bunch of people coming to my sessions. I packed out my sessions almost every time. Australia was a different story, but I packed out all of the presentations that I was giving every time. Everyone was there to see me. They knew what the session was about. They came excited already. And obviously I also put a lot of work into the presentation itself, and I'm a good speaker. But I think having that full audience and having people come with that excitement and enthusiasm is one part of why I earned a Distinguished Speaker Award for at every conference that I presented at. So again, I'm going to sum up the visibility portion and the connections portion of the good by saying that before I started posting online, I was, in effect, a nobody. And I don't mean that to be like harsh towards myself or anything. I'm just saying that I felt like people didn't really care about what I had to say or my career. I felt kind of invisible. I felt like my ideas were always dismissed. I felt underestimated. I didn't feel like I was getting to contribute in the ways I wanted to. And so when I finally just said like, screw it, and I put stuff out there and I said, this is what I'm about and this is how I can help you. And hey, here's something where I'm going to teach you something that you might not have known. And now I'm going to make you laugh today because we all need to laugh. I think that it just, again, it turned me from somebody who was a nobody, whether I deserved that or not, into a somebody very quickly. That was very odd for me. That was very odd to have people treat me differently. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that we're treating people that we know from social media better because they post on social media? There's a lot of nuance to this video, but overall for me, it ended up being a good thing. It's also what ultimately allowed me to hard launch my business after I quit Cisco and have it be a success, right? Because I had already done what effectively is marketing. People already knew me. They were already about my story. They'd been following me. They knew some of the things that I had to offer them, both like as a person and knowledge-wise. And it hit the ground running pretty hard, honestly. So that was surprising. This is my third business and I've never had, gotten initial clients that fast. Now, a lot of the good things that have happened are because of mostly visibility, like different aspects of visibility. But I do want to point out, especially as a technical person, a very important major good thing that's happened from being a content creator, and that's staying on the cutting edge of information. In technology, things are moving quickly. Technology evolves fast. It's hard to stay on top of. And, you can use all of your free evenings and weekends and stuff to study and create labs and code and just stay abreast of all this, but it kind of gets old after a while. Maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Maybe it's just because I'm pregnant, but it's you get burnt out of doing it after a while. You know, even if it's something that you love doing, you just sometimes want to spend a few weeks, you know, learning Spanish or traveling to Colorado to go skiing or just being a person, like playing video games with your family. I still have normal times like that, but what I'm trying to say is that by doing content creation, it's motivated me to help teach other people these concepts, right? And because I have something to look forward to and people want to see information from me, it doesn't keep me on my heels for very long. I'm always thinking about the next thing that would provide value to people that I want to explain or to learn myself in order to explain. And that makes me a better technologist and it makes me a better community member, right? Again, I'm contributing free information to the technology community. Especially once I quit Cisco, I think if I hadn't been a content creator and I just was, for instance, a freelance developer, and I just kind of sat in my room, I was in this, you know, between these four walls and like banging out code, I don't know how motivated I would be to stay on top of new tools and new trends and just to learn. I don't know. Being a business owner is busy enough. Or same thing with being an expecting mom. Like there's a lot on my plate right now preparing for a baby. You see the nursery that we've started setting up in what, you know, used to be my full office. You know, I don't know if I would be fully focused and motivated to keep learning and improving my technology skills if I didn't feel like I could help people or people needed this information. It's kind of like a mission for me, if that makes sense. All right, actually, I will do a third good from this, though it's a lesser good, I think, but content creation is also a creative outlet for me. So I know not all of us in technology consider ourselves creative. I am a highly creative person, and I think as an adult and just with us, you know, we live busy lives. I think it can be difficult to foster that creativity and to have a consistent outlet. And don't get me wrong, there's plenty of times where I wish that my outlet was something that was very offline, like drawing or painting. But content creation allows me to experiment all the time with visuals, with storytelling, with different editing techniques. And while that has, you know, while the creativity aspect of it has slowed down a little bit since, you know, again, becoming pregnant and having less time and energy, it still feels good, right? It still feels good that when I'm putting content out, I feel like I am using a lot of the skills that I have to offer and a lot of that creativity, right? I have an original idea and I have to learn and practice the technical skills in order to either explain it or to demonstrate it. And then I'm using my creativity to explain that or to create a video or whatever, or to make jokes about it in the most effective way possible, and in my case, in the most original way possible. I know not all creators are like that. A lot of creators, you know, follow trending styles and this and that. It's not as much my jam. Using it as a creative outlet, that's pretty nice. All right, so that's only 3 goods that I'm gonna list, but they're 3 pretty big goods. Like the visibility alone, I could create like a web of like all the specific ways in which being visible has helped me out. And again, especially if you're an engineer who is really focused on your technical work, I do highly recommend finding ways to be visible, even if you're not visible to the same extent or the same amount of effort that I am. I promise you that, you know, there's creators who are much less well-known than me, who might only have like 2,000 or 3,000 followers, and they will still have people know who they are. Right? 3,000 people is not small potatoes, and that's just people who are following them. That's not people who know of them or have seen their content. It's very difficult to truly measure impact because so many people are just passive scrollers on social media. That, you know, a lot of the people, again, who have come up to me and I've had the best conversations with in person are people who have never liked or commented on a post. Like, I would never know that they were that positively impacted by what I was putting out there. So, should we get on to the not so good, the bad? I've got 2 things I want to talk about in the ugly category. We're not going to get to the worst of it yet, just the bad. In the bad category, I can sum the web of thoughts I have around what's bad about being a content creator up, mostly with just saying, dealing with people. Now, I enjoy talking to people. I'm not shy. I enjoy content creation. I'm not afraid of disagreement. However, there is something very psychologically taxing, at a minimum, to put something out into the world And first of all, the fact that anyone in the world can instantly comment on it. So again, this doesn't actually happen, but you know, billions of people with internet access, right? Theoretically, billions of people with internet access could, within 5 minutes, all have something to say about a piece of content you put out there. That is overwhelming. That is absolutely overwhelming. And obviously, when it is good comment, or if it's just like, wow, love this, obviously that's a little bit easier to handle. But even sometimes getting a lot of positive feedback from people can be difficult to process. But it's just a lot of reading and taking in other people's opinions. And the reason that that happens is because the algorithms somewhat require you to respond and engage with other people in the comments section and in their comment sections in order to grow. You know, you'll see some of the largest creators, they're not really responding to comments, but they don't have to. They've reached a point where they're beyond that. For people at my stage, you do. I could say so much about it. There's the energy it takes, right? I've just put anywhere from 30 minutes to 30 hours into this piece of content. And now I have to have the energy to read and respond to anything in the world that people are going to say about it. Not always energy I have, and I'm not always in a good headspace to respond, right? We all go through things in life. There's many days where, it doesn't matter what the comment is, I can kind of roll with it. I can make light of it. I give people the benefit of the doubt. And there's other times where I just can't. I'm just irritable. I don't have it in me. Being pregnant has obviously made it more difficult. And thankfully, I haven't had like a bunch of hate comments for the most part. I did when I first started going onto YouTube. Again, my very first 2 shorts videos on YouTube, where I was so excited to start my YouTube journey. I had like the meanest comments left on it. And each video got like 4 comments. So it's not like it was a flood, because again, I'm not a huge creator. But it was so unexpected, right? And it was like, hey, I'm starting out something new. I'm excited about this. I poured my heart into something, and to just have people trash it, and not even to trash it in a way that was valid, right? It wasn't like constructive or valid feedback. It was basically just insulting. It was bullying. It's just a lot psychologically to deal with. And I think perhaps the hardest situation that I have dealt with, and this might just be a me thing, but it's not even when all the comments are negative, because you can kind of detach yourself from that. Or, if there's a video like that or a post like that, you can just kind of choose not to look at those comments. It's actually the ones where they blow up and the interpretations of my piece of content are just all over the place, to the point where like, I don't know how to handle it. Even if it's technical content or something that I feel like is a very, very basic joke. It's not really about people getting offended per se, although that does happen, and that's also kind of annoying. But it's more about, I'm trying to respond to these people, and they say some of these things that like just make absolutely no sense, or they completely understand the concept wrong, or they have a really in-depth question that I can't answer in a comment. And I kind of I waste a lot of mental energy kind of wondering what to do with all of that. And, maybe that's something that I'll get better at, and we'll know how to easily sort through, or we'll just ignore as I get larger. I kind of hope not. I kind of like being active and engaged with my community if I can be, if I have the energy, because that's kind of the point. And some of those interpretations are annoying. Sometimes it is annoying when you feel like you have put out a piece of content that is very straightforward, or at least that's very, I don't know, like it's not that deep, and somebody, they're just like, damn, like, how did you interpret it this way? Or, why are you going to create a whole separate video to talk about me? You get used to it, and it's not that big of a deal, but it's not a part of the job that I like, and I find it very taxing. Especially if you are an engineer or in the technical space, and maybe you are not used to dealing with that and having to just kind of like, I don't know. The term I've coined this week for it is opinion fatigue. I am 100%, as a creator right now, having done this for a while, and while being pregnant and all that, I am experiencing opinion fatigue. I want you to either enjoy the videos and content I make or not. And I don't know. I don't need to know every thought inside of your head about this. It's too much for me. Again, so many great things have come from it. So many great comments and discussions and great connections. But anybody can comment. I think maybe the worst comments, honestly, are from people who like are completely outside of my industry, who are like trying to weigh in and give an opinion. And I'm just like, dude, really? The other bad thing to me about content creation is that people form this idea of who you are, or they feel like they know you. Obviously, none of us, well, I won't say none of us. Obviously, some of us are not trying to be fake or to only present the best of ourselves or whatever online. But we all tend to share certain things online, right? And it creates this perception of ourselves that is much bigger than what we even realize we've created. And then people kind of expect that of you, or they form just these assumptions and opinions about you online, or you'll meet them in person. And, you know, I remember one of the things I faced was initially I was making a lot of fun, funny content, lighthearted, smiling, and then I ended up meeting some people in person. Again, this was in the beginning of pregnancy, so I was not feeling fun or funny, not even the bit. I was, really struggling. And, just remember meeting people and kind of feeling that pressure to be what they expected me to be. And they, and I could tell they expected it even in the way they approached me, right? And I think that people really think they like you because they like your content, and then they meet you in person and maybe they're disappointed. Again, it kind of is what it is. The more time that goes on, the more that this doesn't matter nearly as much. Oh, and by the way, people who aren't content creators will be the first people to be like, who cares what people think about you? That doesn't matter, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, there's a reason that you never post, Cheryl. People do care what they think of them because we're social creatures. At the very least, you care about some of the impacts it has, like, for instance, on your career prospects, even if you don't really care. So don't come at me with that. We all care to some extent, just maybe varying degrees. I've kind of went through this phase recently where I've tried to show a more well-rounded version of myself, right? I'm showing more of like the highs, the lows, different aspects of my personality, certain thoughts and opinions that I hope like show more of like who I am as a person. Then it just got even more complicated because people with all their various interpretations seem to interpret who the real me was in very, very different ways. So I went from everybody interpreting me one way, which was a very singularly dimensional way, to I have no idea how to process your multidimensionality. Yeah, it's a lot. So I don't really know what else I can say about that. I think it's just a downside. It's social media is not real, but people treat it like it's really real while also pretending it's not real. And yeah, you're definitely not a celebrity as a content creator, and certainly not at 12,000 followers. I mean, I guess you do become a celebrity at some point, but in some ways you suffer from some of the consequences of being like a micro celebrity, or a nano celebrity. With any of these bad things I'm sharing, if you want another video where I talk about how I've navigated certain challenges and just ways I handle things, let me know in the comments. I will also place in the bad category keeping up with social media algorithm changes. Oh my God. It's so annoying. Not only is it really, really difficult to find out what resonates with people, how to be a good content creator, how to learn the algorithm for just one platform the first time. But then you might not know this if you don't do content creation, but a lot of us don't just make content on the fly. Some of us do, but it's certainly not all of our content. Even if we do, for the most part, we do something called content batching, where we sit down for a block of time. That could be a few hours, that could be a few days, and we like boom, 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 crank out a bunch of content that we can schedule for the month or the quarter or even just the week. So you'll spend all this time and energy ideating, scripting, filming, editing, picking out your clothes, buying props, whatever, putting captions on things. You can batch out, again, a month's worth of content, and then, oops, the algorithm has changed and they're no longer promoting this type of content, or they're no longer going to show all the text that you had written in the caption to be displayed. Obviously, a certain amount of this isn't the end of the world, but if you're doing content creation seriously, it is kind of a big deal. It's not even just about, oh, there's an interruption in growth. That's time on top of everything that you have to relearn what the algorithm now wants. It's, again, doing that every once in a while is fine, but these algorithms change constantly, and it's very annoying. It's very time consuming. And a lot of us are on more than one platform. But also, I think, again, if you are not just a content creator and you're using content to drive services or a product or a business, which is what I do, I have a business. I don't make most of my money from content. First of all, if my content's no longer reaching people, that means people no longer know about my business, or I'm not gonna be top of mind. That is irritating. And what's even more irritating is that I do take sponsored posts sometimes. And it's very irritating to put all this expertise and knowledge you've gained, crank out this banging post or video, and then just suddenly, oops, algorithm change, and then people who paid you expecting a certain result are disappointed. That doesn't sit right with me. That doesn't sit right with me. This is my life and my business, and I don't appreciate when that happens. If it's my fault and I didn't do a good job, that's different. But algorithm changes, like, and now I gotta guess what you want from me. Like, come on, be real. Okay, actually, here's one more bad thing that's relevant to just smaller creators, because I know there's some things that are bad that are only relevant to larger creators, or typically for larger creators. So for smaller creators, when it comes to doing sponsored posts, I've been pretty strict about what I want to be paid for them, even though I started out not getting paid exactly what I wanted. But you will run into a lot of times where people want to lowball you because you only have such and such followers. That gets old really, really fast, and it's not really a valid piece of feedback, especially depending on what they're asking of you. Again, what are they asking of you? If you're a technical content creator, half the time they want you to do a whole product demo, or you're gonna have to create a lab environment in order to show something. That takes technical expertise. And even if I don't have a ton of followers, that requires a certain amount of compensation. So yeah, as a smaller creator, you will have some people who want to lowball you, or who generally try to minimize what it is you do, even though, as I stated at the beginning of the video, your impact as a small content creator is actually a lot larger than you realize. All right, so I'm gonna end the bad there. Let's get into the ugly. Again, I'm just gonna give you two things for the ugly. These are the things that I think are especially bad about content creation that you really need to pay attention to if you're gonna get into content creation and learn ways to manage it and not be consumed by it. The first is that when you are a content creator, you essentially get onto a hamster wheel of creating content. Because why? Again, mostly the algorithm. The algorithms will stop promoting your content a lot of times, even if you just take a day off. I mean, it depends on the platform, how much you'll be penalized and how much time can go by. Honestly, guys, 365 days a year. Is there anything that you do 365 days a year and do well? I mean, I certainly don't. It is a lot of pressure, and I think that is more pressure than people realize. My shortest content, like if I do something in a minute video, that usually takes me more time, or almost more time, than a YouTube video or a longer form piece of content, just because of the level of thought and editing going into making something really short. Similarly, I mean, even with YouTube, people want really high quality content, but they don't understand how much time and effort it takes to make something high quality, especially if you're a one-person team, which a lot of us are. They don't understand what goes into that. And, then you're trying to maintain this expectation and the same quality. And I mean, some people do it, but again, everybody's circumstances varies widely. Some people are doing this full time. Some people are getting paid to do it, and so they can kind of afford to spend a lot of hours on it. Some people have a team or even just one person helping, and that makes a big difference. And of course, it depends on the kind of content you're doing too. As a technical content creator, I am trying to provide some sort of educational value and some sort of conversation, not just jokes and whatever, though some do. And that makes it harder. That's a lot of brain space to prepare that information. Even just thinking of new ideas. Again, could you sit down right now and think of 365 really compelling ideas, all, 4 pieces of content, all under the same niche? Maybe, but it's a lot. So this hamster wheel of content, not just to stay top of mind for people and to grow, but mostly to stay relevant in the algorithm and to not be punished by it, is a recipe for burnout. It is a recipe for burnout 100%. I know so many content creators, and this has included me too in the past. We end up making content on vacation and stuff. We're never turned off. We're always thinking about well, I need to get some video clips of this so that I can include it in this video later. Or, oh, I need to, bank up some ideas so that later this week when I have time to do this, I can do that. It never, never, never ends. I have a running notes app on my phone, and I'm just constantly throughout the day brain dumping ideas. And again, maybe if it didn't take so much time and energy to like film and edit, for me, particularly editing, maybe if that didn't take so much time, the hamster wheel of content wouldn't be as big of a deal. If the only energy you needed was to come up with ideas or to sit down in front of a camera and even, everybody else is taking care of it, maybe you got a production team, that might not be as big of a deal. And I think that's why, again, people who do have teams and who do get bigger, I would assume it becomes a little easier to be successful, but I do think that they also have more pressure. And especially if it becomes a full-time income, obviously, that's some pressure. So that is a pretty ugly thing that I've seen no matter what platform somebody's on. And I think something that you really have to be careful about. I have definitely been there. I have definitely been burned out, both by trying to maintain a certain quality and by just trying to be relevant and posting daily. And I frequently fail at doing that. I care less now. I make best effort. I found ways to be able to more easily post frequently. And also I just stopped caring as much. Now, again, I haven't grown as much as a result, but like, I don't know, man. I mean, your life shouldn't be dictated by an algorithm, you got to take care of yourself. All right, the second and final thing I want to talk about in the ugly category is that I do think that social media has the potential to impact your self-esteem greatly. And obviously there are things like hate comments and how people judge you, and that is very real. Being canceled is a very real pain. Having people bully you online, no matter your age, is a very real pain. But I have not experienced a lot of the worst of that yet. Again, probably because I'm smaller. But even just if you think about the dopamine reward system, creating content for creators is just as addicting as it is for you as the consumer. If you roll over first thing in the morning out of bed and you're scrolling your phone, or if you're checking your phone apps, 50 times a day, or you check your usage settings on your social media and you're using it 4, 5, 6 hours a day, that's an example of being addicted to social media. And hey, no shame. That's a lot of us, and it's not our faults, in my opinion. But it's also addictive to create. And that is not just because we have that expectation or that hamster wheel of content that's required, but it's also just because it feels good to get that notification that people liked your post. Having people like things, having people comment on them, feeling important, being seen, like I mentioned in the good category earlier, that can be addicting. That is a cheap dopamine hit to have somebody laugh react to something you said. And depending on how affected you are by people's words and also how kind of hardcore you get into growing, I think the more that you care about growing and you're really analyzing your situation all the time about this, the more likely you are to suffer mental health effects of this. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you're going to have posts that nobody really likes it, or that nobody really got the point, or nobody laughed at your joke. As adults in the real world, when this kind of thing happens, it might sting a little bit, but something about the way social media has been designed in the addictive nature of also creating content, I think that it stings a lot more, especially when you first start out. It stings a lot more when these things happen. And part of this is because we are driven by numbers and performance. We are asked to do this, right? If you are a solo freelance content creator who is not depending on it for making money, then sure, you can afford to not look. But a lot of us, regardless of where you are in your creation journey, we're either required or we just kind of feel obligated to take a look at those numbers, or we're kind of seeing them against our will in some cases. And it starts to get to you like, hey, like, why didn't people like this? Or, man, nobody's liking my content lately for multiple posts in a row, and I've been trying so hard. Like, what is it? Like, what do I need to change? Like, you get in your head. People who typically don't create content will just say things like, who cares? Who cares what you post? Who cares how many people like them? It's fine. Those people don't post for a reason. It's because everybody cares at least a little bit. It does impact you. It does. I don't really know how to explain that better, except that content creation can be very isolating and very psychologically taxing. That's just, it can be taxing. So I hope this was helpful. If you're thinking about getting into content creation, if you're new to it, you've been in it, I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. And also happy to answer any questions or just feedback you have about this. There's obviously probably a lot more I could say. I've just never really sat down and talked about it with someone. So talking about it with you guys. Anyway, take care.